Hi, Christina. This is Justin Randsdorp with the Unstoppable Man Health Plan. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be a part of this. So I took a look at your question, and I'd like to discuss some things that I think might help. So the question is, what and or how should summit participants be seeking to be pivoting towards our best selves in the weeks and months ahead? All right, so let's unpack that a little bit. For me personally, as well as professionally, when guiding my clients, I think that regardless of a pandemic or not, there are 4 areas that we can always be focusing on, pivoting towards, or pivoting within, all right? The first one is social, okay? So when we talk about social, these are things like our interactions with people, family members, friends, colleagues, co-workers, anything that's social, and that doesn't rule out, digital things, social interactions. This is your social media. This is going to be different groups you may be in. So taking in that whole social picture, okay? Next up, we have physical, okay? So now this is what we're doing physically with our body, how our body is physically doing. And there's all kinds of metrics to look at to determine how well, our physical well-being is, all right? So that's social, physical. Then we have mental, all right? And this is our mental health. What is our thought life like? If we had to say, mentally how we are doing right now, what first word comes to mind? Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it faith? Is it peace? What's the mental health like? Okay, so that's social, physical, mental, and lastly, spiritual. Because I believe that that's woven within all of this, and it plays a huge role in how we pivot, in how we advance, and become unstoppable in our life in all those areas. Okay, so let's talk about each one of those in particular. And I'm going to offer things that I know have helped me as well as my clients through the years. So I hope this helps. So social. When we talk about social, okay, start taking inventory of your social interactions. And by that, I mean this. How do you feel after? Okay? So, let's say it's on your phone, okay? Let's say you're clicking on a social media app, all right? And they have this actually on majority of the smartphones where it can tell you, how much time you spend using, the phone and what you're using it for. So take a look at that. That'll actually surprise you probably. But beyond that, the question becomes, how do you feel after, say, spending some time on Facebook? Okay, how do you feel after, answering a few family texts or a group text? Okay, because when you notice that, because that's really the issue, is we don't stop to notice that. We don't stop to think, how our body is doing after that, mentally, physically, spiritually, okay? Because remember, these things all touch on each other. And it's important to understand that because, you may say, it's no big deal, I'm always on Facebook. Well, maybe for somebody it isn't. But to be that, dismissive with it and not just notice, some things and spend time noticing how you're doing after, it's easy to miss. It's easy to get lost in the sauce of social media and not realize what it's doing to you. So that would be, one of my first points to make about that. And I've had guys, clients, myself even, go and do purges, where we just say, I'm just going to be unplugged for the next 2 days, emergency calls, I'll obviously allow all of that. But as far as emails, text messages, social media, I've even had guys, literally just go complete, like no TV, no computer, nothing, just quiet, just books, just spending time outside, working on a project, just listening to music, listening to a book. We've become so conditioned when it comes to our social interactions, right? They're so fast now. We can send a text, we can send a video message, we can send an email, we can do a phone call. It's just becoming more and more endless. And what we're losing with that is a bit of our own, just ourself, right? Because we're just constantly handing it out, over to this, over to that. And at the end of the day, what's left, versus having some time to just say, look, this is good. It's good to be able to communicate with people, but I need that other time, where it's more meaningful social interactions. Maybe that's, again, just you, but also maybe that's you having a heart-to-heart, with somebody. Maybe that's you, apologizing for something that you should, and that you never did. Maybe it's, reconnecting with somebody, an old friendship. And notice how you feel after those types of interactions, and some of those friendships may need, the brakes pumped on them. Maybe all of what's happening right now is really starting to make you realize who your quality friends are, because when it comes to friendships, if you get caught up in the quantity aspect of it, even think of, social media in that way, how many friends, people will have and stuff like that. And it's just, the quality at this point, I think, becomes the focus. I think it should always be the focus, but here's a chance to really take that inventory, okay? Both in the social media world as well as, the interactions that you have with, people, in the flesh. And obviously now, hey, we're all social distancing, so it's not even as much of that's happening now. And I think what I find interesting myself, as well as clients that I'm, talking with, is, there's some that I just don't miss, and I would have, I thought I would have, but I couldn't be happier not doing all of this, or needing or feeling obligated to do X, Y, and Z socially. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's amazing, because when we have quality time spent with, ourselves, as well as, those within our home, okay, that makes us so much better for the masses. And when we go back out to do this, that, and what have you, whether that's work, whether that's just human interaction, being unplugged a bit, I think, is bringing back a lot more of that quality communication, if that makes sense. So focus on those things in the social category. Okay, so that's social. All right, next, let's do physical. Okay, so right now, clearly, so much has changed, that we are being affected physically. We're being affected physically that, for some of us, maybe it's more of a sedentary lifestyle. For some of us, it's no different. And for others, it's more. You're going to fall in one of those categories. And so just like with social, you want to take inventory. Okay, so, and this is where, obviously, if we're listening to, things or attending things like this summit, okay, these are things that we already know. Okay, all right, I need to be more X, Y, and Z physically, or I should be, or I could be, or I want to be, right? Now you have time to actually do that. And I know a lot of people are being dismissive of it, because it's like, well, I can't go to the gym, or I can't go to the health club, or I can't. And, again, what we are boiling things down to, because of all of this, is quality, okay? And sometimes finding quality, especially when it comes to your workouts, okay, or especially when it comes to your nutrition, all right? it's a lot of DIY. It's a lot of you putting the time in. It's a lot of you understanding how it works. And so then because of that, you get to apply that knowledge and really grow from it, really simplify it, but also grow. And so that's where I think, another thing, just like with social media, we kind of become dependent on it. With our fitness and our nutrition, all the conveniences of that are definitely reduced. And so now it's forcing us to have to learn more about those things so that we can apply them in a modified way, if we're serious about this. That attaches so much more meaning to those activities. And I'm saying this also as an occupational therapist. Meaning is extremely significant when it comes to therapeutic gains. And I say that again as a therapist. So when you start to attach meaning to things versus it being handed to you on a silver platter, the way it used to be, now those changes can really start to solidify. They can really start to cement into your life. This is an opportunity, is in so many words what I'm trying to say. It just feels uncomfortable at first. And guess what? That's okay. In fact, feeling uncomfortable at first, to a point, is kind of how you know that you're doing the right thing, okay? When it doesn't quite feel as convenient, I think would be a better way to put it. It's like, yeah, but this is challenging me. And this is challenging me in my mind, okay? In my body. And in a way that, you're going to be better for it if you allow it to go that way. If you get discouraged and you just say, what's the point? I can't go to, my old place where everything was there, where I can't, buy the food that I used to buy. So what's the point? Don't go that route by any means. And again, if you're here at the summit, clearly that's not the route you're going. But I think it's important to acknowledge that, it's easy and we don't even know it. That we're like, I couldn't do that. No, stop and notice, think. Say, okay, let's say, for example, it's something like, let's say it's something like you were on a weight loss program, okay, and the type of exercise that you were using was a high impact, interval training class, okay, that you would go to religiously every week, and that just, that made such a difference in addition to your meal plan, okay? What to do now? An example of kind of expanding on it would be like, okay, what exactly takes place during high intensity interval training? Okay, you're spiking your heart rate into target ranges that specifically burn fat. Okay, and so that's why a lot of my clients, as well as I'm sure many people listening, have seen the results of that. Again, it's not for everybody, but it's something that a lot of people are seeing a lot of benefits from. So that's a example of, okay, how do I do that but do it on my own? Well, what we need to do is spike the heart rate and keep it there for certain intervals, okay, and allow it to come down for certain periods of time. And we're doing that for a 20 to 30 minute period. I'm looking at one right now, staring at my backyard. Hill climbing, okay, is one of the greatest ways to get your heart rate up. One of the greatest ways, I guess, I would say personally. But I got a lot of clients that like doing it too. Now, if you live somewhere like Nebraska, or obviously a place that's very flat, what options do you have? Stairs, okay? Stadium type stairs, if there's like a local, place that you can think of, that has a lot of stairs and it's obviously safe and there's no laws against you being there, all the things that are obvious. Taking advantage of something like that is going to spike your heart rate. Now, you're not going to have the awesome workout music and the lights and then all the people that and the matching spandex, and you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to have that experience. You're going to have your own experience. And those many times are so much more meaningful because it's all the fluff is cut out. You're it's maybe a beat up iPod that you haven't used in a while, and it's like an old mix that you used to listen to back in the day. You know, I'm speaking from experience here, and but it just creates a different type of meaning that's that much more, of substance, is what I'm saying. So just a for instance, okay? There's so much like that, and there's so many resources like that out there. So taking that inventory and saying, okay, I'm not obviously going to that class anymore. How can I replicate it? And let's go. Let's put it in motion. Okay, so we got social, we got physical, all right, and now mental, okay? We have talked a bit about how controlling thought life, okay, is, when I say we've already talked about this, I'm saying with my clients, excuse me. But yeah, when we're talking about controlling thought life, this, I think, finds its place in our mental health in a big way. It's easy to turn on the TV, the computer, look things up on your phone, to be told what your thought life is going to be. That's a serious reality that I've certainly come to realize, and many of my clients have come to realize. I'm sure many of you have come to realize, because I'm guilty of it. You see something, and then you talk about it. And when you talk about it, you're attaching meaning, and that's creating a dynamic that, affects your mentality. It's going to affect your neurotransmitters. It's going to affect your brain chemistry, okay? And so I think being mindful of that, no pun intended, it becomes that much more important, because the reality that we once knew, and this includes the way we maybe used to think, that's changing. That is changing right now. And again, it's an opportunity if you look at it that way. I think it's amazing, to be honest, how people's minds are being stretched right now. And I think that's what's negative about it, if you choose to think about it that way, okay, is that, we're being challenged mentally and being stretched mentally, and that feels uncomfortable, but I think that's what ultimately leads to growth. So my advice in that way would be, as you're hearing things, learning new things, attempting to learn new things, keep an open mind, try your best to, be aware of how it's affecting you. Think of it just in the same way as we were talking about social, all right? Because what you allow your mind to think about, all right, has a lot to do with you. The smartest man that ever lived, okay, and I'm talking about Solomon, he said, as a man thinketh, so is he. So thought life has a lot to do with the rest of us, who we are, the situations we find ourselves in, the conversations we find ourselves in, the relationships, the friendships, so much is starting right at the conscious level. And so taking inventory of what your thought life is like, I think would be an excellent suggestion. I know it's something that what seems like daily, am just really enjoying exploring and being stretched in now. I think at times, it's kind of like, this is uncomfortable. But at other times, I find a lot of peace in it too, because again, you're just throttling it to your comfort level. And if those thoughts are going, to negative town, you need to stop and then go do something that brings them back to positive, okay? And when we talk about mentality and things like this, and this starts to, tie into spiritual, this is when we start talking about our frequency, our vibration, our energy. Think of the word emotion, okay? Energy in motion. Emotion. When we allow our bodies, ourselves, to entertain a thought life that keeps our vibration, our frequency, our energy up, okay, that is always going to keep us in a state of flow. That's going to keep us in a state where we are creating the life that we really want for ourselves. And so I see that a lot with clients, that the ones that are able to harness the importance of that, and controlling the thought life to be the things that you ultimately want, and this comes back to biblical principle in so many ways, when we look at verses, in the New Testament that talk about how to think, to think about things that are pure, to think about things that bring you joy, to think about things that, yes, are godly or heavenly, things from above. Now more than ever, I think people are starting to look into the spiritual side of things, and that coming off of a pretty dormant period, at least in my experience. I'm 35, so I grew up during, call it the 90s into the 2000s, and I feel like there still was a very wholesome element to society. From whatever, religion or sect you were from, I felt like there was a bit more of just like more of a substance, more of a goodness, I guess would be the word. And then within the past, 20 years, I would say, I felt like that has gradually shifted, and at times dramatically shifted into some really negative energies and apathy. I can that's another word that just comes to mind during that time. So here we are, and I think I read this the other day actually, where Bible sales are the highest they've ever been in 50 years, since World War II. And when you think about the gravity of what's going on right now, that was probably the last time something like this, meaning this pandemic, took place. Something that would affect so many people across the world. Considering how this whole situation, this pandemic, really connects all of us, that begs some spiritual questions too, because ultimately, I really do feel that we are all connected, at the spiritual level too, at the consciousness level too. And so when you consider that, staying up, is something that I often tell my clients, stay up. Because as you stay up, meaning as you elevate your frequency, your vibration, your energy, okay, you're in your own way, you're actually having a spiritual experience, okay? What we're discussing it, or how we're discussing it, is more, at the metaphysical description, okay? Explaining it in terms that, are measurable, frequency, vibration, those are things that, have units of measurement, energy, right? But ultimately, that's what we would call a spiritual experience too. And so, again, there's that other way of looking at it, where it's at least for me, the word responsibility comes to mind, and the responsibility being to stay up, to do things that keep that spiritual side of me elevated, as well as my mental, because those can affect each other, right? That in turn is going to have an effect on my physical body, how I'm feeling, all right? And then, of course, it could beg some questions about the relationships that you have in your life too. So that would be, what I would have to say in regards to things that we could be looking into and changing and, growing, bettering ourselves, pivoting in the right directions that we want to. I know it's an opportunity for myself. I look at it an opportunity for every person. So, I hope that was helpful, and be happy to answer any other questions. So that's it.